I've been having these weird thoughts lately. Like, is any of this for real? Or not?
I've heard in Xanakin there is a great stadium, all lit up, even at night.
Huh?
Great blitzball tournaments are held there, and the stands are always full.
How do you know that?
Most of the games that I do post on this Games You Should Play, they're games that I have really enjoyed playing. They're games that have stood out, and they're games that I either replay or games that have had a emotional impact on me or something other than that. And through this, I'll be going through PS1 games, PS2 games, PS3 games, and PSP games. And I was trying to debate as to what game really sticks out in my mind, even though I haven't played it in a while. I think the last time I played it was almost a year ago. But still, it's been a while. I mean, every other 3 months I played this game. There's going to be a PS2 game that I want to talk about, and that would be Final Fantasy. That would be Final Fantasy X for the PlayStation 2. It was released in 2001, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was in December of 2001 heading into 2002. This is the first time that a game that I was able to get into an RPG, because up until this point I was more into stuff like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Metal Gear Solid, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, Twisted Metal, Jet Moto. I was more into those types of games versus RPG games, because I didn't know that it was possible to immerse yourself into a game like, say, a book. I got into this fucking game. It was almost like a personal experience this game was, man, because I couldn't wait to get to the next scene, to the next scene, to the next scene, but I'd see how the story unfolded. No, it was just my first time that I had ever played a Final Fantasy game. I got into it 100%. I thought this game was fucking badass, especially on the PS2. At the time, there was nothing like this on the PS2. This thing was like fucking badass, you know? I mean, shit, you got to a whole new world, and it was a totally different world. I mean, the whole aspect of Yuna being a summoner, and then running into, they had real-time facial animations, complete 3D environments, newly designed battle system, you know, and then Auron. I mean, it was Waka. I mean, everything was so cool. Every character felt unique. Their voice acting seemed like it was in sync with their character acting. I mean, it was just a great game. It was such a magical experience for me that, you know, at the end, my favorite scene, at the end of this game, Final Fantasy X, there's a part where, you know, there's going to be a spoiler. If you haven't played this game, you should turn it off right now. But there's a part in the game towards the end where you realize that Tidus has been dead the whole time. And he loves Yuna, and he can't hug her, but he tries his best to hold on to her. And, you know, I found that very fucking touching. Make fun of you if you want, but man, I remember sitting there just listening and watching the game end, and this is just probably one of my favorite PlayStation 2 games of all fucking time. And it always blows my mind when I hear somebody say, "Oh, I got that game, but I never finished it." How can you not finish this game? This game was fucking badass. I mean, you got Tetsuya Nomura, who did all the character design. Tetsuya Nomura, if you don't know it, is the same guy who designed he designed Sephiroth, the Cloud, and Aerith for Final Fantasy VII. He did the intro movie and I think the ending movie for Final Fantasy VIII. And then he did the character designs for this. And he's also the lead creative director behind Kingdom Hearts 1, Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, and Kingdom Hearts for the DS 358 Days. He's also the director behind Final Fantasy Advent Children. Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Tetsuya Nomura is also the guy who is working on Final Fantasy Versus 13 exclusive for the PlayStation 3. We know we're going to probably get the best that that game can possibly offer. And what the White Engine is, not for you guys that don't know this, the White Engine is supposed to be an engine developed specifically for the PlayStation 3 for Final Fantasy games by Square Enix that would blend cutscenes and battle scenes almost seamlessly. That it would transition between the two very seamlessly, just like Uncharted 2 does. I don't know if they're going to have it that well done, but as Naughty Dog was able to do it, but it's supposed to be that way. That was the goal of the White Engine when they made it, and that's ultimately what Final Fantasy 13 is supposed to have, and Final Fantasy Versus 13. So we'll see what happens there. But that's just a little interesting tidbit on Final Fantasy X. Tetsuya Nomura, he designed all the character design on it and everything. He also designed Lightning for Final Fantasy 13 that's going to come out. He's a very talented man, and anything this guy puts his hands on or puts his fucking fingers on, or anything this guy puts his talent to, seems to fucking transcend and become magic. And for me, Final Fantasy X was a very magical experience. Probably one of the best experiences I've ever had on a video game console, period. The gameplay was considered revolutionary. It's still turn-based, but you were able to take your, the gameplay it was an evolution. It was a jump forward from Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, because in this one, you were allowed to jump your characters back and forth. You were allowed to alternate between all of your party while in the battle, which was really, really freaking cool, and up until then had never been seen or had never been done. The gameplay itself it was not for everybody, because after a while it tended to get somewhat monotonous, but for those of you who got the game, for those of you who understood what Final Fantasy X was about, ultimately that didn't bother you, and ultimately you got into it and even had a joy out of doing all the summons, getting all the Aeons, and just trying to take care of Yuna. And this game really did a really good job at the time as far as pacing goes. And yeah, sometimes it did drag on a little bit, but that's just the way Final Fantasy games are. There's just some parts that just drags on a little too much, and for the most part, it's just there for your knowledge and for you to actually get more immersed into the whole world there. Not everything is going to be perfect. But if you were to ask me what my pros and my cons were about this game, I would just say it's magic for me, and I fucking loved it. And I think, this is something that you will never experience on the Xbox or the Xbox 360, and it's on the PlayStation 2 console, last gen. This is something you'll never experience on the Xbox 360. Nothing. Because everything on the Xbox 360 is arcade. Everything. This is a personal experience, man. Final Fantasy X, if you haven't played it, give it a try, man. Give it a try. Just some of the most solid gaming experiences I've ever fucking had. And Final Fantasy X does it great and does it awesome. And I definitely recommend this game to anybody out there. I mean, if you have a PS2, you could probably find this game for less than $10. Used at GameStop for $14, and it's just really great gaming experience, man. You got some of the craziest cutscenes in this game. Overall, the fucking game is a 10 out of 10, period. And I don't really care what anybody says. This game for me was just awesome game. And I really wish Square Enix would release something like this again. When Final Fantasy 11 came out, I was left wanting, and Final Fantasy 12, I was left wanting. And it sounds from the Final Fantasy 13 is gonna come out, and I'm gonna be left wanting. So sucks, but you know what they say, man. The classics are usually the best, and that's usually what this is. It's a classic, and it's almost kind of nerve-wracking and makes you want to go back to the old gen consoles. Instead, guys, Hellhound 30 out. If you have a chance, definitely pick this game up. Try it out. Give it a shot. And this game for me is probably one of the most magical experiences I've ever fucking had. And to be honest with you, I'm not gonna fucking lie. I'm married, secure in my manhood. But at the end, when Titus tries to hug Yuna, yeah, motherfuckers, I got teary-eyed.